Good afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you guys are feeling like watching this. Welcome, my international relations class of Snow College. I am again, of course, your professor, the great, the amazing, the hilarious, the funny, the most smart, educated person you've ever met in your entire life, Dr. Weston Jamison, or as you guys know me as Wes. I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about international financial relations. We're going to talk about, just some basic economic stuff. This, of course, starts our economics section. But of course, I want to just basically kind of talk to you guys about some of the current events that's happening this weekend, that happened over the weekend. We haven't really talked in a few weeks. So I think it's important that you guys hear some of this stuff. So let's get started. In international news. So about 10 days ago, the Prime Minister of the UK, we are talking about literally the political leadership of the United Kingdom, has said that he has come down with COVID-19. Now, here's the thing. He said he was fine. He was just going to stay at home. He was going to take some medicine. He was going to get better. He's going to get stronger, right? Well, turns out over the weekend, things got worse. Things went from bad to worse. He was admitted into the hospital. And just this morning, he was admitted to the ICU, the intensive care unit. Now, the problem is, from what I'm hearing, now keep in mind, I'm not that kind of doctor, but they say that if you're in the ICU, you're probably on a ventilator. And if you're on a ventilator, it's a 50-50 chance that you're going to come off that ventilator. So we should all be praying for the leadership of the UK. One thing is, if we start losing political leaders to this, what kind of upheaval can we see from the bottom? If we start losing our leaders at the top, what happens to the bottom? Will we start breaking down? And we're already seeing, I just listened to the new White House, Trump briefing, and they were talking about domestic deployment of troops. Now that's an interesting thing, domestic employment, domestic deployment of troops. What does that mean? What will we see troops on our street corners, and how will that make you feel inside? These are the questions that I have that truly, truly scare me. Here's another really, really interesting report that I caught on the news. Homeland Security warns terrorists may exploit COVID-19 pandemic. Well, yeah. If terrorists really have it in for the United States, what better time? What better time than right now? Here's the thing. Would anybody be like, if the fear is already at, really, really high levels, if we suffered some kind of catastrophe terroristic event, it could be devastating because we already have a lot of medical, supplies being drained by the COVID response. What if we had to deal with an actual natural disaster? You know what? Here's the thing. Utah suffered an earthquake a few weeks ago. Not too long ago, maybe less than a week ago, Montana also had an earthquake. Now, what if Yellowstone goes? That could be an absolute catastrophic, really, really bad thing to happen in this nation. And it wouldn't even have to be terrorists. It could be Mother Nature, So these are things to think about. I'm not trying to scare you, but I am trying to think, what's next? How do we move beyond this? Like, what is the next thing that we need to worry about? Here's a story you might have missed. So we all know that supply lines are completely being stretched out, right? People do not want to leave their house, so we have to count on these essential people to move food, right? Well, in Germany and in the EU, they are talking about, now they have legalized the use of worms and baby crickets for, that's right, food. Now, look, I've never had worms or baby crickets. They might be delicious. I don't know. I just don't know if that's, I'm serious, I don't know if that's what I want in my food. And now that they've legalized it, that in the EU, you know that most likely you're going to see some of these things inside the food. And this is supposed to relieve some of the stress of the people of the European Union. It's interesting. I don't know if it'll happen, but most definitely, since they've legalized it, I guarantee you will see worms and baby crickets in the food. And you know what? Don't be surprised if that comes here too. Just be careful. Make sure that you're reading that ingredients label. So finally, like with our last story, our last international relations story, our best friends, America's hat, Canada, we are now not letting them have the masks that we have. Now, ever since last week, the company 3M that produces these masks and the president have been battling with each other, right? 3M thinks it's absolutely their right to sell to whomever, right? They should be able to sell to any country in the world. Here's the thing though, right? We need those masks. We absolutely need those masks. And the president has used the Production Defense Act for 3M in order to maintain those masks here in the States. Now, 3 million masks, we could really use those masks. But the question is, should we let the capitalist system survive? Now, 3M thinks they can make more money by selling these masks to other nations rather than just giving them to the United States government, which is very valid. But the question is, don't we need those masks? So right now, we are propped up against capitalism versus the need for more masks. This might be one of the most interesting battles that we have going on, especially right now as we're talking about international economics. Okay, so as we talk about international economics and how it works in the international system, remember, international relations, is all about two things. It's about economics and it's about war. Now, we've talked about war for, honestly, most of the semester. However, we have yet to really talk and dig in deep to the economics between nations. And so we have to talk about a few concepts first. Now, first of all, I want to talk about perfect competition. Okay? This is an interesting concept. It requires a large number of buyers and sellers. Now, think about like a farmer's market, right? There's rarely any regulation to a farmer's market. And so, like, these people, they just buy and sell whatever they think it's worth. Whatever that tomato's worth, okay, here's 50 cents, here's $3, whatever. However, the buyers and sellers want to come together to create the market. Now, this rarely exists in the global international economic community. Most of the time, there are lots of regulations. There's lots of sanctions. There's lots of tariffs and taxes. So we rarely see perfect competition in the market. What we often see, and sometimes we see this in times where we don't want to, is monopoly. Now, monopoly is one company, one seller, and often what we refer to as monopoly, as an example, is De Beers. Now, De Beers sells diamonds. So what is a diamond? Diamonds are just simply, coal that has been under a lot of pressure, and all of a sudden, now you have this really shiny rock. Can this rock sustain you? Can you drink the rock? Can you eat the rock? What essential value does this rock have? And so if it provides us almost nothing in terms of value, why is it prized so much? Why do we pay so much money for this rock? Now, in economics, we call this the water diamond paradox, right? Because we don't need diamonds to survive, and yet they are valued very highly in our society. But what we do need to survive is water. Now, we can see that, water, you guys probably don't pay water, but you can ask your parents, and even look at my water bill. I guarantee you it's not very high, okay? You're talking about very low amounts. So why is that? Why do we pay less for water than we do for diamonds when water is used to sustain us and diamonds we don't even need? Nobody can survive on a diamond. But here's the thing. Monopolies survive in every single government that we have. And that's including America. And right now what we do best is sell bullets and guns and tanks and ships and war materials. And keep in mind, when there is a monopoly, governments have very little power to break them up. They can go to the World Trade Organization. That's the best they can do. They can go to the UN. But remember, these organizations have very little teeth. They can't do much to break up those monopolies. Another thing we find throughout the entire international community is something called an oligopoly. It's a weird word, oligopoly. I like how it rolls off your tongue. Oligopoly. Oligopoly. Yes, oligopoly. It's a little bit better than a monopoly, which is, of course, one, mono. This means two or slightly more. For the purposes of this video, I've said 2 to 5, but you're literally looking at 2 to 5 companies or states that control the production of a good. Now, when I mean a production of a good, think about OPEC, the oil producing, exporting countries, right? So there's only a few of them. I have listed some of them here: Iran, Iraq, Libya, Kuwait, Qatar, Venezuela, Ecuador, Nigeria. There's only a few. And what these countries do is they're able to control the price of oil because they're able to control the distribution and production of it. Think about that. More than anything else, right? This world needs oil. It's in all our plastics. It drives our cars. The computers you're using to watch this need oil. Now, you have 9 to 10 countries that can control it. And America definitely produces its own oil. We can be self-sufficient. But prior to the last few years, we had just been buying oil from OPEC. Because why use our oil when we can use the oil that's being sold to us? And thus, maybe we end up with the last of the oil. That was a very smart idea. Plus, also, I don't know, I'm from Texas again. You know, you guys know I'm from Texas. Every video, I'm going to mention that for sure. But here's the thing, right? I've seen what oil extraction does to land. It literally destroys it. Once, you have oil on soil, on the dirt, nothing can grow there. So you start seeing that these oil wastelands, because the oil just gets sloshed around and nothing grows there. You can't grow corn, soybeans, food. So these are real issues that we need to talk about. And maybe perhaps we should be buying from OPEC and reserving our own oil. Let's talk briefly a little bit about economic war, right? So there can be economic wars fought between nations where there's actually no military, right? Where there's actually no battle deaths. Now, we actually have an economic war going on right now with North Korea. This article headlines right here says, North Korean reveals cannibalism is common after escaping starving state. Yeah, so we have waged an economic war with North Korea. We hold food and oil above their heads in order for them to act right? We don't want them to produce nuclear weapons. We don't want them to fire them over our little brother in Japan. So one of the things we do is we issue sanctions against them. Now these sanctions, essentially what they are, is rules. We issue rules against them. Governments can apply sanctions against economic interactions of certain kinds or between certain actors. That's exactly right. We can basically tell other countries, don't trade with them. Or we can say, you know what, your sanction is, you're going to charge half as much if you're going to sell to America. Now, here's the thing. These sanctions are very, very powerful. They can bring a very wealthy country to its knees. And there's also autarky, right? Autarky is essentially self-reliance, meaning that you don't need anybody. And so a lot of what happens is when these sanctions get leveled against a country like Iran, like North Korea, they learn to be self-reliant. But they can't always produce everything they need, so they go without. Now, I'm only going to introduce this. I want you to know, I'm going to come back to this, okay? I'm going to come back to this. I'm just introducing this to you right now. International finance. Now, that's a really scary word. International finance. Finance between countries. That's a lot to handle. But what I want you to know for right now is that cross-border investments, like FDI stands for foreign direct investment. We'll get to that later. But I just want you to know that cross-border investment can improve the welfare of both countries. Moving goods back and forth between countries helps each other out by something we like to call comparative advantage. Sometimes, France is better at producing things like wine, and America's better at producing things like bullets, and we can help each other out. Financial ties can make societies mutually vulnerable, though, too, because if we don't have certain things like fruits or foods, that could actually end up harming us when we are trading back and forth. We already know the dangers, and we see that with China right now. Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there, but I'm going to say this right now. There will be more to come on Wednesday. I will give you another video on Wednesday, and we'll start getting to the heart of the 2008 financial crisis. I hope you guys are having the greatest week of your lives, and I will see you again on Wednesday. Have a great day.